Captain Daquan stood at the observation window of the diplomatic vessel Harmony, watching the stars blur past. His reflection stared back at him, a man in a simple gray uniform, smile lines around his eyes, graying hair at his temples. Anyone looking at him would see a middle-aged diplomat, perhaps a little tired, certainly harmless. That was exactly what he wanted them to see. Behind him, the bridge hummed with quiet activity. Lieutenant Hanabe sat at the communications station, her fingers dancing across the holographic display with practiced ease. She laughed at something another crew member said, tucking a strand of black hair behind her ear. To the casual observer, she was just a friendly communications officer. Nobody would guess that those same hands had once operated weapons systems on a destroyer during the Mars Rebellion. "Captain, we're receiving a message from the Galactic Council," Hana called out, her voice light and professional. "They're confirming our arrival time for the Peace Summit." Day nodded and walked to his command chair, moving with the relaxed pace of a career diplomat. His movements were slow, measured, unthreatening. Years of training had taught him how to hide the combat reflexes that still lived in his muscles. Every member of his crew had undergone the same training. They called it Protocol Shepherd, act like sheep until the wolves show their teeth. "Thank you, Lieutenant. Send our confirmation and regards." Near the engineering console, a young man named Jin Lee checked various readouts. His baby face and nervous energy made him look like a fresh academy graduate. The other species they encountered often patted him on the head, amused by the young human. Jin never corrected them. He never mentioned that at 24, he had already survived 3 planetary assaults and earned the Terran Cross for single-handedly holding a bunker against 40 enemy soldiers for 6 hours. Ambassador Yuna Park entered the bridge, carrying a datapad filled with diplomatic documents. She was an elegant woman in her 50s, wearing flowing robes that suggested peace and wisdom. She had kind eyes that crinkled when she smiled. Those same eyes had once watched tactical displays as she planned military operations that saved millions of lives during Earth's final unification war. "Captain, the Council representatives are excited to meet us," Yuna said, sitting in the chair beside him. "Apparently they've been showing our art exhibitions and music festivals throughout the galaxy. The Torvan Empire is particularly fond of our pottery." Day smiled. "That's wonderful news, Ambassador. The cultural exchange program is working well." It was all true. Humanity had spent 20 years building a reputation as artists, philosophers, and peaceful traders. They had shared their music, their literature, their scientific discoveries. They had negotiated trade agreements, settled disputes between other species, and consistently voted for diplomatic solutions in the Galactic Council. Every species in the known galaxy believed humans were gentle, passive, perhaps even weak. Earth's military history was classified at the highest levels. The unification wars, the resource conflicts, the genetic purges, all of it was buried in encrypted archives. As far as the galaxy knew, humans had achieved world peace through meditation and philosophical enlightenment, not through 300 years of the most brutal warfare their planet had ever seen. A small alien creature called a Pixin floated onto the bridge, its tentacles waving in what passed for a greeting among its species. It was the Galactic Council's observer, assigned to human ships to help them learn galactic protocols. In reality, it was there to watch them, to make sure the humans stayed peaceful and compliant. "Good morning, Captain Day," the Pixin chirped in its high-pitched voice. "What a lovely day for peace and cooperation." Quote, "Good morning, Observer Tillix," Day replied warmly. "Would you like some tea?" "Oh, how delightful, you humans and your tea ceremonies. So peaceful, so civilized." Hana prepared the tea, her movements graceful and calm. The Pixin never noticed how her eyes constantly scanned the sensor displays, how she tracked every ship within 1,000 kilometers, how her fingers stayed close to hidden emergency protocols. None of the alien species noticed these things. They saw what they wanted to see: peaceful humans, harmless humans, humans who could be easily controlled or exploited if necessary. Later, in his private quarters, Day removed his diplomatic uniform and pulled on exercise clothes. His cabin was sparse, decorated with simple art and meditation cushions. But hidden behind a wall panel was a small shrine, photographs of soldiers who had died under his command, medals from campaigns the galaxy would never know about, and a well-maintained combat knife that had seen more action than most soldiers in the entire Galactic Council fleet. He performed his evening exercises, movements that looked like Tai Chi or yoga to anyone watching. But each motion was actually a combat technique, practiced and refined until it became second nature. Every member of his crew did the same. They stayed sharp, stayed ready, while appearing as harmless as possible. Jin Lee knocked on his door. "Captain, private word." Day gestured him in. Once the door closed, Jin's entire demeanor changed. His shoulders squared, his eyes hardened, and he moved with the precision of the Special Forces operative he truly was. "Sir, I've been monitoring chatter from the Vrex Dominion. They're calling us soft meat. They think we're easy targets." Day nodded slowly. The Vrex were a warrior species, all aggression and conquest. They had crushed 12 civilizations in the past century. The Galactic Council feared them but couldn't stop them. Are they making moves? Not yet, but their military is positioning near human trade routes. I think they're planning something. Keep monitoring. Stay in character when Observer Tillix is around. Yes, sir. Jin hesitated. Sir, how long do we have to pretend? Day looked at the young soldier. As long as it takes. We came to the galaxy in peace, because we know what war costs. We've seen it, lived it, buried friends because of it. If we can avoid it, we will. And if we can't? Day's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Then they'll learn why we choose peace. Jin. They'll learn. It's not because we forgot how to fight. It's because we're too good at it. Jin nodded and returned to his cheerful, nervous persona before leaving the cabin. Day looked out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vrex were planning, scheming, seeing humans as prey. Let them plan. Let them scheme. Humanity had played the long game before. They had patience. They had discipline. And if pushed, they had something the galaxy had never seen. 300 years of military innovation born from species-wide survival warfare. He hoped it wouldn't come to that. He genuinely did. But hope wasn't a strategy. And Captain Day Quan hadn't survived 40 years of combat by relying on hope alone. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council took place 3 days later. Ambassador Yuna Park stood at the central podium, surrounded by representatives from 40 different species. Above her, holographic displays showed star maps, with red zones spreading across human territory. The Vrex warlord, a massive creature covered in armored plates, slammed his fist on his console. The Vrex Dominion claims these sectors. We require the resources. The humans will surrender them peacefully, or we will take them by force. Murmurs rippled through the council chamber. Several species shifted uncomfortably. Everyone knew what Vrex claims meant: total conquest, slavery, and destruction. Yuna kept her expression calm, her voice steady. The Vrex have no legitimate claim to those territories. They are sovereign human worlds, home to millions of our people. Your people are weak, the warlord growled. You have no military strength. You cannot defend these worlds. It is better to surrender now and avoid bloodshed. We prefer diplomatic solutions, Yuna replied. Perhaps we can negotiate. There is nothing to negotiate. The warlord's voice boomed across the chamber. You have 3 days to evacuate. After that, those worlds belong to the Vrex. The council president, a tentacled being called Morlin, raised its appendages for silence. Warlord? This is highly irregular. The council must vote. The council is weak, like the humans. The warlord cut off the communication, his image disappearing from the display. Yuna returned to her seat beside Captain Day. Her hands were steady, but her eyes were cold. They're really doing this, she whispered. Yes, Day replied quietly. They've been watching us for months. They think we're defenseless. Should I send the signal? Not yet. Let's see how far they're willing to go. Across the galaxy, 3 human colony ships traveled through deep space. The vessels were enormous, designed to carry thousands of people. Their hulls were painted white, marked with symbols of peace and unity. They broadcast messages of hope and cooperation on all frequencies. Inside the lead ship, Colonel Tae Woo walked through corridors filled with soldiers. Every man and woman wore civilian clothes, but they moved with military precision. They were veterans of Earth's unification wars, soldiers who had seen combat so intense that most alien species couldn't comprehend it. Pilot Sora Kim sat in what appeared to be a simple cargo transport, running pre-flight checks. The transport looked old and slow, but hidden beneath its civilian plating was a fighter craft capable of speeds and maneuvers that would make most alien pilots black out. She had flown missions in Earth's atmosphere, in zero gravity, in plasma storms. She had survived situations where one mistake meant instant death. "Colonel, we're picking up Vrek's signatures," called Engineer Bin Choi from his station. Like everyone else, he was disguised as civilian crew. Nobody looking at him would guess he had once designed the weapon systems that ended the Antarctic conflict in 3 days. "How many?" 30 warships. "They're moving to intercept us." Tae smiled grimly. "Right on schedule. Any communication?" "They're demanding we stop and prepare to be boarded." "Comply. Full civilian protocol." "Look scared." The colony ships slowed, their engines powering down to minimal levels. The Vrek's fleet surrounded them, weapons armed and locked. It was a classic intimidation tactic, overwhelming force against helpless prey. A Vrek's commander appeared on the communication screen. "Human vessels. You are now property of the Vrek's dominion. Your ships, cargo, and people belong to us. Prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in immediate execution." Tae made his voice shake, injected fear into every word. "Please. We're just colonists. We have families, children. We'll cooperate. Just don't hurt anyone." The Vrek's commander laughed, a harsh grinding sound. "Pathetic. Your species is even weaker than reported. Boarding teams. Proceed." The Vrek's ships latched onto the human vessels. Armored soldiers moved through airlocks, weapons ready, expecting terrified civilians to cower before them. What they found was empty corridors. Back on the Harmony, Captain Day received an encrypted message. 3 words appeared on his private display. "The trap is set." Hana Bay was already working, her fingers flying across her console. She had dropped the friendly communications officer act. Her eyes were focused, intense, analyzing Vrek's communication patterns and battle commands. "Captain, I've cracked their encryption," she said. Her voice was different now, sharper, military precise. "They're not planning to take prisoners. Once they secure the ships, they're going to execute everyone and claim it was necessary to suppress resistance." Day nodded. He had expected this. The Vreks had done it before to other species. "Send the code phrase to Colonel Tae. Then, contact the Silent Fang." "Yes, sir." Jin Lee was no longer pretending to be nervous. He stood straight, checking weapon systems that had been hidden in the Harmony's walls. "Sir, should I alert the crew?" "Do it. Protocol Shepherd is over. Activate Protocol Wolf." Throughout the ship, hidden panels opened, weapons emerged, armor was distributed. The diplomatic vessel revealed its true nature, a warship disguised as a peaceful explorer. Every crew member moved with sudden efficiency. The pretense of peaceful civilians dropped in an instant. Ambassador Yuna shed her flowing robes, revealing a tactical uniform underneath. She pulled her hair back into a tight bun, her kind expression replaced with the hard look of a combat strategist. "I'll handle the council communication. They need to see what happens next." "Make sure they're watching," Day said. "All of them." In the colony ships, Colonel Tae received the activation code. He smiled. "All teams, weapons free. Show them what happens when you mistake peace for weakness." The corridors that had seemed empty suddenly filled with soldiers. They emerged from hidden compartments, perfectly positioned. The Vrek's boarding teams suddenly found themselves surrounded, outgunned, and outmaneuvered. Sora Kim powered up her fighter, dropping the civilian disguise. The cargo transport's outer plating fell away, revealing a sleek combat craft bristling with weapons. Around her, hundreds of other cargo ships did the same. The colony fleet transformed before the Vrex's sensors, civilian vessels becoming warships in seconds. Engineer Bin Choi activated weapon systems that shouldn't exist on civilian ships. Targeting computers came online. Point defense systems armed themselves. The colony ships had more firepower than most military dreadnoughts in the Galactic Council fleet. The Vrex commander on the flagship stared at his sensors in confusion. What? How is this possible? These were civilian ships. Were. Taewoo's voice came over the communication channel. His earlier fear was gone, replaced with cold authority. Allow me to introduce myself properly. I am Colonel Taewoo of the United Earth Defense Force. You are surrounded, outgunned, and have approximately 30 seconds to surrender. You're bluffing. You're a peaceful species. No. Tae replied. We're a species that chose peace because we learned the true cost of war. We learned it over 300 years of the most brutal combat our world has ever known. We're very good at war, Commander. That's exactly why we avoid it. Behind the colony ships, space shimmered. Stealth fields dropped. More human vessels appeared, real warships this time, sleek and deadly. The Silent Fang and her sister ships, they had been shadowing the colony fleet the entire time, invisible to Vrex sensors. The human fleet had the Vrex completely surrounded. On the Harmony's bridge, Hana opened communication channels to the entire Galactic Council, transmitting on all frequencies. Every species is about to see what happens next. Captain Day stood, his diplomatic persona completely gone. In its place was a combat veteran, a man who had commanded troops in battles that made the Vrex campaigns look like minor skirmishes. He sent one message to the Vrex fleet. You should have studied our history before you called us weak. Then he gave the order that would change the galaxy's view of humanity forever. All ships, engage. The Vrex flagship shuddered as human weapons struck its shields. Commander Vrexel stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The readings made no sense. These were supposed to be weak humans, a species without military strength, yet his sensors showed weapon signatures more advanced than anything the Vrex had encountered. Return fire, he roared. Destroy these insects. But the human ships moved like nothing he had seen before. They didn't fly in predictable formations. They danced through space, each vessel moving independently, yet somehow working together perfectly. Vrex targeting computers struggled to lock onto targets that shouldn't be able to maneuver so quickly. Pilot Sora Kim laughed as she pushed her fighter into a spiral that would have killed most organic pilots. G-forces that should have crushed her were compensated by advanced systems, but more importantly, by training. She had learned to fly in Earth's gravity wells, in atmospheric combat where one mistake meant crashing into a mountain. Space combat was almost relaxing by comparison. Fox 3, she called, releasing a missile at a Vrex destroyer. The missile didn't fly straight. It corkscrewed, jinked, and seemed to predict where the enemy ship would be. It struck perfectly, punching through shields that should have stopped it. Around her, 200 human fighters swarmed the Vrex fleet. They flew in patterns that looked random but were actually carefully choreographed chaos. The Vrex had never fought an enemy that used such tactics. On the colony ship Hopeful Journey, Major Ho Sung led his team through corridors where Vrex soldiers had thought they were in control. The aliens were discovering a harsh truth: boarding a human vessel was a death sentence. Contact left, whispered Sergeant Narration. She was positioned at an intersection, her weapon raised. She didn't have the heavy armor of the Vrex, but she didn't need it. Humans had learned to fight smart, not just hard. 3 Vrex soldiers rounded the corner, their weapons blazing. Nari had already moved. She was where they didn't expect, firing from an angle they hadn't considered. 2 aliens fell before they realized she wasn't where she had been a second ago. The 3rd Vrex turned, bringing his weapon to bear, but Corporal Juan Park was already behind him. Juan moved silently, a skill learned in the urban pacification campaigns where noise meant death. His blade found the weak point in the Vrex armor, not the heavy plating on the front, but the joint at the neck. The alien fell without firing a shot. Clear, Ho-Sung reported. Section 7 secured. Vrek's boarding team neutralized. Throughout the ship, similar scenes played out. The Vreks had expected to find frightened civilians. Instead, they found soldiers who had perfected the art of close-quarters combat through decades of fighting in Earth's ruined cities, underground bunkers, and space stations. Every human on these ships had survived situations where they were outnumbered, outgunned, and had to win anyway. The Vreks were learning what that meant. Back on the Harmony, Captain Day watched the tactical display. Jin Lee had abandoned all pretense of being a simple technician. He coordinated defensive fire with the precision of the weapons officer he actually was, calling out targets and adjusting firing solutions faster than the ship's computer. Vrek's cruiser attempting to flank, Jin reported. Adjusting point defense. Missiles incoming, countermeasures deployed. The missiles never reached the Harmony. Smaller automated defense guns, hidden until now, shot them down with perfect accuracy. The Vrek's cruiser tried to correct its approach, but Harmony's main weapons fired. The cruiser's shields collapsed, and the ship went spinning away, disabled, but not destroyed. Surgical strike confirmed, Jin said. Crew should survive. Day nodded. Humanity didn't fight for genocide. They fought to win, to protect, to stop threats. But they didn't kill unnecessarily. That was another lesson from Earth's bloody history. Unnecessary death only created more enemies. Hanabe continued her work at the communications station, but her role had changed. She wasn't just a communications officer. She was information warfare personified. Her fingers moved across multiple displays, cracking Vrek's encryption in real time, feeding false data into their systems, and turning their own communications network against them. I'm inside their command net, she reported. They're confused and panicking. Their commander is calling for reinforcements. Can you stop the message? Day asked. Already done. They think they sent it, but nothing got out. They're isolated. This was human warfare, not just shooting, but thinking. Humans had learned to fight with their minds as much as their weapons. They had developed tactics over centuries of conflict, refined strategies through countless battles, and built military doctrine from the ground up through trial, error, and blood. Engineer Bin Choi worked at his console, managing power distribution to the Harmony's weapon systems. But he was doing more than that. He was monitoring the energy signatures of every human ship, making micro-adjustments to create interference patterns that confused Vrek's sensors. They're firing blind, Bin reported. Their targeting computers are seeing ghost images. Actual hit probability is down by 60%. It was a trick from the resource wars, when humans fought each other with weapons so advanced that traditional tactics didn't work anymore. They had learned to manipulate electromagnetic spectrum to make their enemies see what wasn't there and miss what was. The Vreks had never faced an enemy that fought this way. They were warriors, bred for battle. But their battles were straightforward, power against power, strength against strength. They didn't understand human warfare, born from a species that had to be clever to survive, that had to innovate or die. On the Silent Fang, Colonel Tay watched the battle unfold. Everything was going according to plan. The Vreks were trapped, confused, and losing. But he took no joy in it. He had seen too much death, buried too many soldiers. Victory wasn't something to celebrate, it was just the better alternative to defeat. Colonel, Vrek's flagship is attempting to break through our formation, his tactical officer reported. Let them try. Sora, are you in position? Sora Kim's voice came through clear. In position and waiting. Execute Shadow Dance. Sora's fighter squadron had circled around, using the debris from disabled ships as cover. Now they emerged behind the Vrek's flagship, right where its shields were weakest. Their missiles launched simultaneously, guided by targeting data shared between all human ships, another innovation the galaxy had never seen. Networked warfare, where every soldier, every pilot, every ship was part of one coordinated organism. The missiles struck, the flagship's shields flickered and failed. But the humans didn't destroy it. Instead, they disabled its engines, its weapons, its communications. The great warship became a floating hulk, harmless but intact. Throughout the Vrek's fleet, similar stories played out. Ships were disabled, not destroyed. Boarding teams were captured, not killed. The humans fought with overwhelming efficiency, but also with restraint. They proved they could win, but they also proved they weren't monsters. Inside the Vrex flagship, Ho Sung's team breached the command deck. The Vrex commander raised his weapon, but Nari's shot took it from his hand before he could fire. The alien looked at the humans surrounding him, smaller than his warriors, less armored, but somehow more dangerous. "How?" Commander Vrexel asked. "Your species is peaceful. You have no military tradition." Ho Sung removed his helmet, letting the Vrex see his face. He was young, barely 30, but his eyes were old. "We have 300 years of military tradition. We just didn't tell anyone about it. We chose peace, Commander. We chose to hide what we were capable of because we hoped we'd never need it again." "You're monsters," Vrexel whispered. "No," Ho replied quietly. "We're survivors. We learned to fight because we had to. We learned to fight well because anything less meant extinction. And we learned to value peace because we saw what war really costs." On the Harmony's bridge, Captain Day received confirmation from all units. The battle was over. 47 minutes from start to finish. The Vrex fleet was disabled, its soldiers captured or retreating. Human casualties were minimal, a few injuries, no deaths. Ambassador Yuna Park opened the channel to the Galactic Council. Every species in the galaxy was watching. Their faith in human gentleness shattered. "This is Ambassador Park of United Earth," she said, her voice calm but firm. "What you just witnessed was humanity defending itself. The Vrex Dominion threatened our worlds, our people, our sovereignty. We responded appropriately." The council chamber was silent. Observer Tillix, the Pixen who had been on the Harmony, floated in shock. Its entire understanding of humans had been destroyed in less than an hour. "You lied to us," the council president said. "You pretended to be peaceful." "We are peaceful," Yuna replied. "We came to the stars hoping to leave our violent past behind. We shared our art, our culture, our friendship. That wasn't a lie. But peaceful doesn't mean defenseless. It never did." The Galactic Council chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives from 40 species spoke at once, their voices mixing into an incomprehensible noise. Some demanded explanations. Others called for human expulsion from the council. A few, the wiser ones, said nothing at all. They simply watched and learned. Ambassador Yuna Park stood at the central podium, waiting for the noise to die down. She had expected this reaction. Humans had spent 20 years building trust, and in 47 minutes, they had shattered the galaxy's perception of what humanity was. But it had been necessary. The Vrex had forced their hand. "Order!" The council president, Morlan, slammed its appendages on the console. "We will have order. Ambassador Park, you will explain this deception immediately." Yuna nodded slowly. "I will. But first, let me show you something." Computer, display file, Alpha 7. The holographic displays around the chamber changed. Images appeared: cities in ruins, landscapes scorched by weapons, monuments to billions of dead. The representatives fell silent as they watched. "This is Earth," Yuna said quietly. "This is our home. 200 years ago. We didn't lie about achieving peace. We just didn't explain how we got there." More images flashed across the screens. Soldiers fighting in devastated urban landscapes. Massive war machines destroying each other. Nuclear fire consuming entire regions. Biological weapons turning populations against themselves. Battles in space stations, on colony ships, on the Moon and Mars. For 300 years, humanity fought itself, Yuna continued. We developed weapons you can't imagine. We created tactics born from desperation. We became very, very good at war, because the alternative was extinction. Nation fought nation. Ideology fought ideology. Corporation fought corporation. We nearly destroyed our entire species. A video played showing a ruined city. Survivors walked through streets filled with debris, their faces hollow with grief. A child cried over a body. An old man stared at nothing. "This is what we learned," Una said, her voice heavy with emotion. "War isn't glorious. It's not an adventure. It's children crying for parents who will never come home. It's cities that took centuries to build, destroyed in hours. It's the best of us dying while the worst of us survive. We learned this lesson in blood, in fire, in tears." She paused, looking around the chamber. Every representative was watching now, transfixed by the horrors on display, so we stopped. We united. We put down our weapons and chose peace. Not because we were weak, but because we were tired. Tired of death. Tired of loss. Tired of burying friends and family. We chose to be gentle because we knew the alternative. The images changed again. This time, showing Earth rebuilding. Cities rising from ruins. Forests regrowing. Humans working together, helping each other, creating beauty from ashes. When we reached the stars and found you, we made a choice. We could arrive as conquerors, using our military experience to dominate, or we could arrive as friends, bringing the best of what we had learned. We chose friendship. We chose peace. That choice was real. Our kindness was genuine. Captain Day's voice came through from the harmony. "Ambassador, the Vrex fleet has been secured. All prisoners are being treated according to standard humanitarian protocols. Medical teams are assisting their wounded." Several council members looked surprised. After such a decisive military victory, they expected humans to execute prisoners, or at least treat them harshly. Instead, humans were caring for their defeated enemies. But when the Vrex threatened our people, Una continued, when they planned to kill millions of innocent civilians, we couldn't stay passive. We wouldn't sacrifice our people to maintain an image. So we revealed what we're capable of. And yes, we're capable of terrible things. We're also capable of restraint, mercy, and compassion even toward our enemies. She pulled up new data, detailed breakdowns of the battle. We disabled the Vrex fleet. We didn't destroy it. We captured their soldiers. We didn't execute them. Every human weapon was calibrated for minimal necessary force. We could have killed them all in the first 30 seconds. We chose not to. Gone. Major Ho Sung appeared on screen from the Vrex flagship. Behind him, medics, both human and captured Vrex, worked together treating wounded soldiers. "Ambassador, the Vrex wounded are stable. Their commander has agreed to discuss terms." "Thank you, Major. Bring Commander Vrexel to a communication channel." The Vrex commander appeared, his armor scarred from battle. He looked different now, not proud and aggressive, but thoughtful. Defeated, but not broken. "Commander," Una said, "tell the council what you found when you boarded our vessels." Vrexel was silent for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice rough. "We expected civilians. We found soldiers. But not just soldiers, veterans. Every human we encountered fought with skill we couldn't match. They moved like they had trained for lifetimes. They anticipated our tactics before we executed them. They used weapons and techniques we'd never seen. And yet you survive," Una pointed out. "Why?" "They held back. I saw it in the battles. They could have killed my warriors easily. Instead, they captured them. When my flagship was breached, the human team could have executed everyone on the command deck. Instead, they took prisoners and immediately began treating our wounded." He paused, something like respect entering his voice. "I have fought many species. I have never seen warriors who could be so deadly and so merciful at the same time. It's unsettling." A representative from the Torvan Empire, a species known for their philosophical nature, spoke up. "Ambassador Park, I must ask how many humans are actually soldiers? How much of your civilian population is military?" Una smiled sadly. "That's the wrong question. The right question is, how many humans have seen war? The answer is all of us. Earth's final unification war ended 60 years ago. Every human alive today either fought in it or had parents who did. We all carry scars. We all know loss. Every adult human has basic combat training because we grew up in a world where you needed it to survive. The implications rippled through the chamber. Humans hadn't hidden a small military force. Their entire species was potentially military. Every diplomat, every trader, every artist could be a veteran soldier. But we don't want to be soldiers, Yuna added. We want to be artists, scientists, explorers, parents, friends. We came to the stars hoping to leave violence behind. We can build beautiful things. We can create, discover, and inspire. Given the choice, that's what we choose every single time. Colonel Tae Woo appeared on screen from the Silent Fang. Ambassador, we're receiving messages from the Vrex Dominion leadership. They're requesting negotiations. Of course they are, a small reptilian representative said. You've proven you can destroy their fleet. We've proven we don't have to, Yuna corrected. That's the difference. The Vrex respect strength, and we showed them strength, but we also showed them mercy. Now they know that fighting us costs too much, and that cooperating with us is safe. Pilot Sora Kim's squadron flew past the Council observation windows, their fighters moving in perfect formation before returning to their carriers. The representatives watched the display of skill and coordination. These weren't crude warships. They were precision instruments operated by masters. Engineer Bin Choi transmitted detailed scans to the Council. For your information, these are our defensive capabilities. We're sharing them so there's no confusion. We have weapons that can disable ships without destroying them. We have shields that can withstand most known weapons. We have tactics developed over 3 centuries of the most intense warfare any single species has ever experienced. Why share this? Asked the Council President. This information makes you vulnerable, Captain Day answered. Because we want you to understand. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We don't want to conquer anyone. We just want to live in peace. But if someone threatens us or our friends, they need to know what they're facing. It's better for everyone if potential aggressors understand the cost of attacking humanity. Sergeant Nari Yoon, still aboard the Vrex flagship, escorted prisoners to holding areas. She moved among the captured warriors, checking their restraints were secure but not painful, ensuring they had water and medical care. The Vrex watched her with confusion. She had fought them brutally just an hour ago. Now she treated them with basic kindness. Why do you care for us? One Vrex soldier asked. We are your enemies. Nari looked at him. You were following orders. Fighting for your people. I understand that. I've done the same. The battle is over. Now you're just another living being who deserves basic dignity. Maybe when you go home, you'll remember that humans could have killed you, but chose not to. Maybe that matters. Back in the council chamber, Ambassador Yuna Park prepared to finish her address. Members of the council, humanity stands before you revealed. We are capable of great violence. We're also capable of great compassion. We choose compassion whenever possible. But we will defend ourselves and those we care about. She looked directly at the camera, knowing her words would spread across the galaxy. To any species watching this, understand this clearly. Humanity wants peace. We'll work for peace. We'll sacrifice for peace. But we won't die for someone else's idea of what we should be. If you come in friendship, you'll find no better friends. If you come as enemies. She gestured to the tactical displays still showing the disabled Vrex fleet. Well, you've seen what happens. 3 weeks after the battle, Captain Daequan stood in the council chamber for the final vote. The galaxy had watched humanity's revelations spread like wildfire. Some species reacted with fear, others with respect, and a few with understanding. Now the council would decide humanity's place among the stars. Ambassador Yuna Park stood beside him, once again wearing her diplomatic robes. But nobody was fooled anymore. Every species now understood that beneath those flowing garments was someone who had commanded armies, who had made decisions that saved billions of lives through calculated strategy and, when necessary, decisive action. The Vrex delegation was present too. Commander Vrexel stood in the section reserved for petitioning species. His armor was polished, his wounds healed by human medical technology that the Vrex doctors admitted was more advanced than their own. He would speak today, and his words would matter. Council President Morlan called the session to order. We are here to vote on the Human Accord, a proposed treaty that would establish new protocols for interaction with humanity. Before we vote, we will hear testimony. Commander Vrexel, you have requested to speak. The Vrex commander stepped forward. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew the Vrex as conquerors, as warriors who showed no mercy. What would he say about the species that had defeated him so thoroughly? I came here planning to speak against humanity, Vrexel began. His voice was strong, clear. I was prepared to call them deceivers, to demand they be expelled from the council for hiding their true nature. But I cannot do this. I cannot speak against them because they taught me something I did not expect to learn. He paused, choosing his words carefully. The Vrex Dominion has conquered 12 species. We pride ourselves on our strength, our military prowess. We believed might made right, that the strong should rule the weak. Humanity showed me the flaw in this thinking. Images appeared on the display's footage from the battle. When they defeated our fleet, they had us completely. We were helpless. By our own philosophy, they should have destroyed us, taken our territories, enslaved our people. Instead, they disabled our ships. They captured our soldiers and treated their wounds. They fed us, cared for us, and then negotiated our release. Vrexel's voice grew quieter, more thoughtful. I have fought many battles. I have seen many defeated enemies. I have never seen a victor show restraint like this. Humans could have killed us all. I saw their weapons, their tactics, their skill, but they chose not to. This confused me at first. I thought it was weakness, but I was wrong. He looked directly at Captain Day. They showed mercy not because they are weak, but because they are strong. Strong enough to win. Strong enough to know when to stop. This is a kind of strength the Vrex have never understood, and it is stronger than any weapon. The chamber was absolutely silent. A Vrex warrior was praising the species that had defeated him. It was unprecedented. The Human Accord should pass, Vrexel concluded. Not because we fear humanity, though perhaps we should, but because they offer the galaxy something valuable. An example of how to be powerful without being cruel. The Vrex Dominion withdraws all territorial claims against human space. We have much to learn. He stepped back. Several council members looked shocked. The proud Vrex, admitting they had something to learn from a species they had called weak. The galaxy was changing. Next to speak was Observer Tillix, the Pixen who had spent months on the Harmony. The small creature floated to the speaking platform, its tentacles moving in nervous patterns. I lived among humans for 8 months, Tillix said in its high voice. I watched them every day. I reported that they were peaceful, artistic, and kind. I was not wrong. They are all these things. But I missed the deeper truth. Tillix pulled up images from its time on the Harmony crew members, sharing tea, playing music, creating art. I saw Lieutenant Hanabe laugh at jokes and help new crew members feel welcome. I didn't see that those same hands could operate the most sophisticated communication warfare systems in the galaxy. I saw Private Jin Lee act nervous and young. I didn't see the veteran who had saved hundreds of lives through courage under fire. More images: Captain Day practicing what looked like meditation, crew members exercising, people sharing meals together. I thought these were simple civilians playing at being professionals. I was blind. Every moment of meditation was combat training. Every exercise routine was military drill. Every casual conversation included tactical assessment. They were soldiers every second of every day, hiding in plain sight. The Pixen's voice took on a tone of admiration. But here is what matters. They didn't have to hide. They could have arrived in the galaxy as conquerors. With their technology and experience, they could have dominated us all. Instead, they chose to hide their strength and show us only their kindness. That choice defines them more than their weapons ever could. One by one, council members spoke. Some expressed concern about human military capabilities. Others talked about the deception. But a pattern emerged. Most species were coming to a similar conclusion. Humanity was dangerous, yes, but they were also trustworthy. They had proven they could destroy their enemies, but chose restraint instead. Lieutenant Hana Bay, watching from the Harmony, smiled as she listened to the testimonies. They're starting to understand, Captain. We're not monsters or angels. We're just people who learned some hard lessons. Captain Day nodded. Think they'll pass the accord? I think so. Fear and respect can coexist. They fear what we can do. They respect that we don't do it unless we must. Back in the chamber, Ambassador Yuna Park took the podium for the final time. Members of the Council, I know you're struggling with what to think of humanity now. Let me make it simple. We are exactly who we said we were, a species that values peace, art, science, and cooperation. We just happen to learn those values through the hardest possible lessons. She pulled up one final image. It was a monument on Earth. A massive wall carved with billions of names. This is the memorial wall in Geneva. Every person who died in Earth's wars is listed here. 3,400,007,216 names. It takes 3 days to read them all aloud. The chamber was utterly silent now, the weight of that number settling on everyone present. Every human child visits this wall during their education, Yuna continued. We make them understand the cost. We make them promise to be better. That's why we came to the stars, seeking peace, not because we don't know how to fight, but because we know exactly how much fighting costs. She looked around the chamber. The human accord simply formalizes what we already practice. We guarantee peaceful cooperation with all species who extend the same to us. We offer defensive assistance to any ally threatened by aggression, and we promise that our military capabilities will only be used in defense, never in conquest. But, she added firmly, we also make clear that we will defend ourselves. No more deception about our capabilities. The galaxy now knows what we can do. We hope that knowledge prevents war, rather than causes it. The vote began. One by one, species cast their decisions. The tally appeared on the main display. Green lights for yes. Red lights for no. The green lights far outnumbered the red. The human accord passed with 78% approval. Morlun announced the result. The treaty is adopted. Humanity's status in the Galactic Council is affirmed, with the understanding that Earth possesses significant military capability held in reserve for defensive purposes only. Celebration erupted on the Harmony. Crew members hugged each other. Relief evident on every face. They had gambled everything on honesty, on showing the galaxy their truth, and the galaxy had accepted them. Pilot Sora Kim did a victory roll in her fighter, her squadron following suit. Engineer Bin Choi finally relaxed at his console, the tension he'd carried for weeks flowing out of him. Major Ho Sung, back on Earth, raised a glass with his team to toast their success. In the quiet of his quarters that night, Captain Dae Kwan stood before his hidden shrine. He looked at the photos of fallen friends, at the medals he'd earned in battles the galaxy would never know about. He thought about the price of peace, paid in blood by generations before him. We did it, he said softly to the memories. We kept the peace. And when we couldn't, we won quickly and showed mercy. I hope you'd be proud. Sergeant Narayun joined him, having received permission to visit. She looked at the shrine, understanding what it meant. Do you think it'll last? The peace? For a while, Day replied. Long enough for the galaxy to see we mean what we say. And when new threats emerge, they'll think twice. Not just because they fear us, but because they've seen that cooperation with humanity brings benefits that conquest never could. Ambassador Yuna Park broadcast one final message to Earth and the human colonies. We've been accepted. The truth is out. And we're still welcomed among the stars. But this comes with responsibility. We must be the example we claim to be. We must show that strength and compassion can coexist. We must prove that the lessons we learned in blood weren't wasted. On Earth, people watched the broadcast in cities that had been rebuilt from ruins. They looked at their children, at the peaceful world they'd created from ashes, and felt pride mixed with determination. They had given the galaxy a gift, the knowledge that even the most warlike species could choose peace. Now they had to keep that promise. In the council chamber, now empty except for a few maintenance workers, the holographic displays still showed the vote results: 78%. A strong majority. But also 22% who had voted no, who still feared humanity, who still doubted their sincerity. Captain Day understood this. Trust wasn't built in a day. It would take years, maybe generations, to fully integrate humanity's revealed nature into galactic society. But they had time. They had patience. And most importantly, they had learned from 300 years of mistakes. The galaxy had thought humans were gentle. Now they knew the truth. Humans were gentle by choice, not by nature. And that choice, made every day by every human, was stronger than any weapon in their arsenal. It was enough. For now, it was enough.